Hi there. My name's Omar Metab. I'm a journalist with the BBC, a tech journalist that works for a show called Click that goes out on BBC News and BBC World. And we've looked at e-scooters before, and it's something that I've personally done a report on for the BBC sometime last year, specifically looking at things like where you can ride them, what the legality is in certain countries and whatnot. So it was quite a long piece, a lead piece for the show. So, first and foremost, one of the first things that we had to do at the beginning of the report, which is something I'm going to answer for you now, is what are e-scooters? So legally, they're defined as, a powered stand-up scooter using an electric motor. You've seen them all over the place, depending on what country you're in. Either there are a lot or not many. Here in the UK, there are not too many, although they are starting to go up in numbers. So over here, especially, they're classified as a form of micromobility, and it's, as you can see in the definition, these scooters are generally designed with a large deck in the center of which the rider stands. So it's a scooter with a motor, basically. But legally is where it gets a little bit funny. So in the UK, they're classified as a personal light electric vehicle or powered transporter. The reason for that is that even though it's something you just hop on and you ride, it's got two wheels, because it has a motor on it, it's classified as a powered transporter instead. So instead of just being something you can ride down the street freely, they're classified as a motor vehicle. And so these aren't the only type of light e-vehicles that are put into this category. There are also e-skateboards, there are hoverboards, those two-wheely things that you saw a few years ago that every kid got on Christmas. I didn't. And segways, which have largely gone out of fashion. So are you allowed to ride them? Oh, sorry, have I clicked twice? Sorry, that's my bad. Could we go back to the previous slide, please? Sweet. Are we allowed to ride them? Yes and no. Okay, so the reason I say that is because obviously in many countries around the world, especially in Europe, in the US, you will see them on the streets. The laws can vary from state to state, from country to country, but generally you will see them out there, either privately owned or they're rented. But in the UK, they're illegal. And even though you may see them on the London streets every now and again, the law is that you can't actually ride them. The reason for that is because they are classified as motorized vehicles, as I mentioned earlier, which means you can't ride them on the pavement because they got a motor. You can't ride them in public spaces. You can't ride them in cycle lanes because they're not a cycle. And you can't ride them on roads because to ride them on the road, you need everything that you need for a motor vehicle, which is insurance, you need tax, licensing, registration, MOT, all of this. And actually, for my report last year, I called the Department for Transport up and I said, yeah, listen, I've got my cousin's got their own little private e-scooter. What can I do to get insurance for this or licensing or anything? And they're like, I don't know. The reason for that is there's no infrastructure set up. So, it's very difficult to get these things as readily available in the first place as you could do with cars. And, as you can see in the next point, you need other things like turn signals, number plates, rear red lights. This is just how things are at the moment because at its current stage, they're classified as, motor vehicles. So until you get those things, you can't ride them. And if you do ride them, you'll get 6 points and you'll get a 300 quid fine. And in this video here, we find out whether or not people actually know about this. So can we play the video, please?
When I bought it online, they should have told us that. They're illegal to ride it here. I just spent £500 for nothing, basically.
We recognised that there was a growing trend with the use of e-scooters around London and an awareness that people weren't necessarily educated in the fact that they are actually illegal to use on the roads and footpaths. So we have issued a number of fines and also seized some e-scooters, but we are maintaining that message that we would like to educate members of the public first and foremost and sort of spread that message wide that they are actually illegal to ride on the roads, on the pavement or in cycle lanes.
And I had to go to the government website to end up finding out what is what, because online, if you have a look, there are some websites that say, oh yeah, no, they're completely fine so as long as you've got a helmet on, or e-skateboards, for instance, another form of micromobility, they're in a grey area, and so you can ride them because they're not illegal like e-scooters are. Not the case. They're completely illegal. Can't use them at all. Only on private spaces. But some people don't know. And like I was saying, I turned up at that place where the police were doing, spot checks and stuff. I saw someone get 6.8 points and 300 quid fine. Unfortunately, we couldn't film them because they were very angry and they threatened to sue us if we did. So we didn't get that. But we got this guy who spent 500 quid on something that he didn't even know was illegal. Next slide, please. So what's the law in other countries? So like I said, the UK is quite unique in that they're probably the only country left in Europe that hasn't got set regulation in regards to micromobility. Whereas, in other countries, in Belgium, anyone over 18 can ride them. It's under the same laws as bicycles, a max speed of 25 kilometers an hour. Germany, same thing, but the minimum age is 14 and it's 20 kilometers per hour. And the US is a lot more complex. They differ state by state. Some have no regulations whatsoever. Some have some regulations. But the state of New York, for example, is the only state out of 50 that do not allow them whatsoever. And you can understand why, given the landscape there and how busy things are. But again, it's not just about what the law is. It's about how people are feeling, because despite wherever you go, like I've been traveling with Click across Europe, and I've been to countries where, they say, it's illegal to have two people riding at once or to be under the influence and riding them. People are largely ignoring them. And so that's become a bit of a problem. But people have also been challenging, whether or not this form of micromobility, be them e-scooters or e-skateboards, should be legal in the first place and what restrictions there should be upon them. So next slide, please. So if you play this video, we'll hear from a few people about what they think of the laws and the current standpoint of the use of these e-vehicles in their countries.
They will limit the electric skateboarders, electric scooters to 20 kilometers per hour. It's really slow. Can you imagine going, because there is no bike lane everywhere in the city, or in Paris, for example, there is no bike lane in every street. So it's getting really dangerous if you're going at 20 kilometers on the street.
Your boards here go up to what, 50 miles per hour?
Yeah.
So you're saying don't be a crazy guy, but then 50 miles per hour.
Yeah, that's crazy. But you have to have full protection and like try it on a street without any cars and stuff, and sure it's, yeah.
In Melbourne, for instance, which is a really big scene in Australia, there's a policeman that's in that electric skateboard riders group. He cruises around with everyone and there's no problems, because what he says is that as long as you're a reasonable citizen, you're behaving yourself, you wear protection, you're not causing problems, no one cares. It's safe, everyone's happy.
Actually, while I was filming this report last year, we were coming up to, crunch time, and I was mixing it all together. And then all of a sudden my boss calls me and he goes, Omar, you need to check the news. So I went on the website, went on the BBC website, and we saw that a presenter had died whilst riding an e-scooter. It was the first fatal collision in the UK. She unfortunately collided with a lorry. Unfortunately, it was quite a severe crash. Don't think any amount of protection could have, helped her in that situation. And even at the time of the report, we saw that in France, there were 3 e-scooter deaths in the last 4 months around the time of the report. And since 2018, there have been 29 reports of e-scooter related deaths reported by Global News, 20 injuries per 100,000 e-scooter rides, and half of these were head injuries, with some, experiencing traumatic brain injuries. And that's the problem, is that, at the moment, a lot of countries, unfortunately, with their regulation, some feel they're not strict enough, some feel like they're too strict. The majority of them don't require you to wear a helmet. Like here in the UK, you're not required to ride with a helmet if you're riding in a public space. And so there's a lot of concern. And I remember going to LA last year. I went for E3. I saw plenty of these things out there. You could rent them and ride them around wherever and leave them wherever as well. No one cared. They were like over the pavement. There was a couple on the road. If not treated properly and regulated properly, there is some cause for concern, because it could, whether it be the rider or someone driving or even someone on the pavement, there could be, bad injuries that could end up happening as a result. Next slide, please. But saying that, is it going to happen anyway? Like I said, the UK is the only country at the moment that hasn't legalized them. Will this change in transport happen anyway? Will these urban micromobility vehicles, be in the landscape? Yeah, they will, because they're popular and they're convenient, and whatever's popular and convenient, we want to usher in and integrate into society as much as possible. And that's what's happening now. Because in the UK, when I talked to the Department of Transport last year, they did say to me that even though they're illegal, they will make an effort to try and legalize and regulate e-scooters. And since the COVID crisis began, the Department for Transport have, quickened things up. So they fast-tracked their trials that they were going to do later this year. They've made them available now. So the law currently is, because public transport trips were down 90% in April, cycling levels are up by 300% compared to normal. They've said, okay, you know what? You don't want to go on public transport. You don't want to drive into London because they've hiked up congestion charge. Ride these things. So companies can now rent out e-scooters in the UK, in select areas in the UK. Still, it is the case that you can only rent them. You cannot, ride your own private one. The ones that you rent have to be speed limited. Again, this is just a trial. There's no guarantee that they will be legalized afterwards, but like I said, more than likely they will. You must carry a full or provisional license. Again, a max speed of 12.5 miles per hour. Cycling helmets are recommended, not mandatory. And, I hope you guys can tell me what you think about this afterwards, because like I said, there have been people that have had head-related injuries. It is a helmet necessary, like it is with cycling. You can only ride on cycle lanes and roads, not motorways or pavements. I think you'll agree there. And this only applies to e-scooters. So other powered transports like segways, e-skateboards, they're still currently illegal. So the UK is lagging behind other countries at the moment compared to many others. But saying that, it is catching up, trying to at least, and trying to be in a place where other countries are, like the US, for example, in the availability of these e-scooters. So next slide, please. So what do you think? Are they convenient, a new way of traveling? They are more environmentally friendly than cars. Is this enough of a reason to usher them in? Are there still safety concerns on the road? I didn't show you this video, but when I was filming that report, I tried out an e-skateboard. I fell about 3 times. I lost my balance dozens of times. It took a lot for me to be able to, get used to it. And funnily enough, even an e-scooter that I rode during all of this, I managed to lose control of, and ended up, falling on my ass again. So there's a question as well, that if you are to drive these things, should you take a separate test? This is something, again, that the DFT have been in discussion with. Should there be a separate test for these micro mobility vehicles? Should you be able to, insure yourself as well? Can they potentially litter the streets? As I said, in places like LA, for instance, they have, and they've been a major cause for concern. But doesn't matter what we think, because this is a massively growing trend. There's no signs of this stopping. And, despite what anyone may say about e-scooters, e-skateboards, or segways, or anything like that, people are going to be riding them. And, they will become more and more popular, and there'll be more pressure from the public to allow this sort of thing to, to take over. And so are we going to see, for instance, in Amsterdam, there's areas of Amsterdam where there are no cars allowed and only cycles. Are we going to see that in cities around the world where there's only cycles and e-scooters allowed in certain areas? So it could transform the very nature of urban transport as we know it. So instead of saying or asking the question, should e-scooters be on the roads? The question should be, how can we facilitate e-scooters on the roads in the best and safest way? And so obviously we've got people here else on the panel who's going to be talking about that, their own solutions, and maybe you guys have a couple of suggestions of your own, and I'd love to find out more of what you think. But I should be doing another report later this year into e-scooters, the current legalities, and companies out there that are looking at the best way to keep riders and people out there safe. So maybe that's what we should be focusing on. And
thank you, Omar. So I think we jump into the next presentation, and I think we're gonna hand over to Andrew.
Thanks, Roman, and yeah, delighted to be here and talk about Luna. I'm the CEO of Lunas, which is a startup company, and I guess we've been working on a lot of the problems that Omar has been talking about. So if you want to jump on to the next slide, I'll kind of give you the context of where we see things. Really from a scooter operator point of view, the market or the industry is absolutely brand new and has sort of exploded all over the world. So the problems that are there are kind of, because it's at such a big scale already, they're kind of very evident, but for a really new industry, it's unusual that you have such a new industry at such a big scale so fast. So it's this is why we have some of the problems. But from an operator point of view, we see that they've had real challenges initially with the scooter durability. So you know, the problem was the scooters were lasting for you know, less than a couple of months. They weren't really built for the job. So the scooter operators worked to fix that problem, and largely that's fixed now. It's probably not 10 out of 10, but it might be 8 out of 10 now in terms of scooter durability. And what the market's really currently working on is refining their operating model, that they can kind of be profitable in the cities that they're in. So they're introducing things like swappable batteries, which makes a big difference because you can just go out and swap the battery rather than taking the whole scooter back off the street and putting another one out. So these kind of changes are now making the thing or this space a little bit more profitable, and it means it's more sustainable. And then the problems that we've been working on Luna are really the next phase, and it's what you've been talking about, Omar, is to get the safety aspect there, and particularly from an operator point of view, you're only as good as your weakest rider. And it's really open to the public. They want people to sign up. They want them to use the scooters, but you know, that's the challenge, is that very, very wide range of people are going to get on these things. So we've been trying to bring the technology that you would see maybe in high-end cars and things like that to the scooter market to try and help with some of these problems. So if you want to jump on to the next slide, Roman, I can show you a couple of videos. I'll talk through this. I think from the parking side, the key thing that we're enabling is the concept of the virtual dock. So docks, like a physical dock, like you'd see in many European cities with the public bikes, is very, very good way to manage the transport, but they're really expensive, and then it limits the geography that you can deploy, and good solution, but very limiting. And then if you look at the image on the bottom left, the totally dockless model can lead to problems as well, because you're relying on the best judgment of all of your users. And you know what they say about common sense, it's sometimes not that common. So people park them in crazy places. But with the technology that we've got a really hyper accurate positioning. So it's accurate to, in an urban environment, we're accurate to about 10 centimeters. And that enables you to have this concept of the virtual dock. So the operator can really kind of specify where they want you to park the scooters, and it gives you the ability to tidy up the city. But then actually from the operator point of view, it's also quite efficient, because now you have to go and swap the batteries or service the scooters. They're all in places that you expect them, rather than being spread out over a wider area. So that's from the parking side. If you want to jump on, Roman, we've got a video on that, a very, very short video. I'll just talk over it. I'm sure we've got audio, but we have our demo app here, and this is in DCU. It's our local university. We've put what we call a geofence, or like a kind of digital map around the parking bay that you can see here. So yeah, we've got one of my colleagues there, and the scooter's parked. This is a Blue Duck scooter. We did a launch with Peter's company, who's going to talk in a minute, in December, and we've mapped out the parking area, and then we can see on the app that the scooter, the icon turns red, so it's now not in the parking zone. So that's let's say, kind of game changing for scooter operators. The traditional GPS accuracy that you have at the moment gives you maybe 5 to 10 meters, but what we've just seen there in that simple video isn't possible with the technology that's on scooters today. We've kind of jumped on and we're using a technology called RTK that makes it possible to position it to centimeter level accuracy. If you want to jump on to the next slide, RTK is not perfect because like anything, it works with some satellites and it has a base station, but we can find areas where maybe not even essential to play this video. It's a little bit long, but play it and we can skip out after a couple of seconds. What you find in urban areas is you can get quite bad urban canyons, which is basically very poor signal conditions. You have high walls. In this video, we're in a corner of the car park of our building, and we've got vegetation above. There's zero signal in there, so you're essentially indoors. And what you're going to see is we've put a camera on the front of the scooter, and then we're using QR codes or data matrices to position the scooter visually. So the scooter is looking at these data matrices, and then it's able to position itself off that because it knows where they are. The video is kind of long, so for the sake of keeping things moving, maybe let's jump on. But if anybody wants to see that, there's more detailed videos on the website. Then we did that to give you accurate parking in all conditions, so whether you have good signal or bad. But now we have a camera in the scooter, so we said, okay, what else can we do with it? So if you play this video, Roman, you'll see, again, this is in the university campus, and what you're going to see here is all of the people are kind of being highlighted by the video. So it's a very, very robust pedestrian detection algorithm. It's something that's kind of commonplace in high-end cars and things like that. But what we know now as a scooter operator is how many people are in the area that we're riding, what speed is the scooter going, and then we've got options from there. You can either slow down the scooter, you can warn the rider, you can put an incentive program in place to say, okay, well, we're going to reward you or punish you for good and bad riding. So I think that's a key piece. If you jump on again, Roman, we've also done a road segmentation or lane detection. So a key piece again is what surface am I riding on? And in this video, we'll see we've picked up the bike lane. The key thing is you want people to stay off the footpaths, because that's where you're going to have your vulnerable road users, children, disabled people, all those kind of things, and you just can't have a scooter going at 20, 25 kilometers per hour. So we've built in all those technologies kind of forward facing. Jump onto the next slide, and I can show you a little bit more of what we've done. We've also developed a helmet detection algorithm. So what this has done is we've trained the algorithm to look, and you can see my colleague V here is modeling the helmet. He's going to put on a couple of different helmets, and we've trained it to recognize helmets. We were really lucky to be able to join a Intel Movidius incubator. And this is where we developed all this machine vision technology. So it's been really, really helpful to work with a big company like that and to integrate that technology. And you can see the value. Omar, you mentioned earlier the number of head injuries. Insurance is a huge cost to running a scooter business. So there's certainly potential to help the the health and safety of riders, but B, there's also probably an economic advantage to wearing helmets from an insurance perspective. The operators do have really, really high premiums, so it's another interesting angle on the technology. But I guess as an overview, that's where we are. Luna as a company, we've made huge progress with the technology, and we're just at the point where we're kind of moving from prototype into production. What we've done is we've done our first pilot in our local university, Dublin City University. We did that with Blue Duck, and that was a small number of scooters. It was 10 or 12 scooters running around the campus. What we're going to do next is a pilot in a kind of real world environment in one of the UK cities. We're lining up to hopefully get involved in one of those trials, and then to show the technology in the real world. So we're hoping to be part of one of those trials that Omar mentioned in his piece.
All right, great, Andrew. Thank you so much for these insights. And now it's Peter's time to shine.
Hopefully I won't bore you after hearing these guys talk. My name is Peter Morgana Gomez. I'm currently the Vice President of Operations for Blue Duck Scooters. We operate in 7 medium to large size cities in the southern United States. We have tenders out and acceptance for several more cities, as well as private business parks that we're really excited about to help alleviate some of their traffic congestions. We were founded in 2017 by Eric and Paul Bell and Jeff Mangold. Our current CEO is Michael Keene, and our Chief Innovations Officer is Andre Champagne. And yes, folks, that is a real name. You know, like any other startup company, we hit stumbling blocks along the way. We were in this mix kind of in the inception. So we made operational mistakes, technology mistakes. It was a brand new concept for us, as well as for many of the larger players, you know, in the industry. We had to learn as we progressed. We created our own path, and you know, unfortunately, that took from learning from our mistakes and, you know, gathering information from people like Omar and Andrew, and saying, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board. There was a lot of whiteboard meetings. We've learned so much along the way. We overhauled our methodology in order for us to be successful, basically in any micromobility arena. There's not an exact model. There are a lot of questions, like to Omar's point, that, you know, how do you address certain cities one way, and, you know, so it's not the wild, wild west. You have to have a model that works basically 85% of the time, and be able to tweak that model to the municipalities' own directions and regulations. So we've learned 2 things. This is an asset management company, to Andrew's point. I think we have one of the most durable scooters out in the market right now today. We did start with an off-the-shelf, you know, scooter, and that was kind of a disaster for everybody. So I'm not going to take full blame from that. You know, it's no longer a land rush. When we first started seeing this, polluted cities and, you know, trash sidewalks, it was because it was a land rush. Everybody wanted to go drop 10,000 scooters in a city, you know, just to get market share in these great big cities, you know, and it kind of created a cluster, you know, for everybody. Now we don't launch in any cities without total government buy-in. We spend months and months of planning with each of these cities and municipalities, going over the do's and the don'ts, their likes, their dislikes. And with technology provided by companies like Luna, we're able to cordon off zones where the scooters will actually turn off if they go into the areas where the cities and the municipalities don't deem them fit to be ridden. As far as the parking, you know, we have the technology now to be able to park them exactly where we want them, in the parking zones that we want them, so it creates less, you know, pollution, if you would. I don't like to use the word. We work very closely with our government partners. Like I said, we involve the governments, the transportation departments, the mayor's offices, the communities, and we brought on Megan McNamara, who has done a fantastic job of managing our government affairs. She has an entire team devoted to every city that we go into. She irons out and gives us all detailed information of what they want, what they're looking for, the number of scooters, how long the pilot program is. Then our operations team comes behind that, and we start meeting with the city heads and saying, you know, here's our first sweep, here's our map, here's where we want to operate, here's how many scooters we want to put in this area, here's the reason why. And, you know, we give the cities, now we data share 100% with the cities. What we see as an operator, they get with the touch of a button. They can see where their rides are, how long their rides are for, how many rides they had in any given day in any area. They can actually track the full ride of every scooter. in our system. You know, we've it's really become an asset management, government partnership, operations type play. We hire our own employees. We don't have juicers. We don't have people, you know, that are contractors. We have fully trained mechanics, warehouse operators, field operators, area managers. I mean, we've learned very quickly that if you control your own employees, you have a much better understanding of how things are actually going versus how you think they're going. We learned that real quick. So we like to own our own employees who are on the same page. We can move them. They're interchangeable. Like we just launched a city Saturday. We launched Waco, Texas, and we were able to take some of our employees and just put them into the mix, and they know exactly how we do it, how we operate. So it streamlines the time it takes for us to launch a city. We can jump from city to city, like I said, with our basic cookie cutter model, but we have to leave it open for tweaks and have understanding that each municipality is going to have their own specifications or their own desires. We have a guy named Andre Champagne. He's our chief innovations officer, and he's just done such an outstanding job with taking us from an off-the-shelf scooter to Generation 3. While Generation 3 is out in the streets, he's already coming up with Generation 4 that's going to be even safer. And, you know, going back to what Omar said, you know, he fell on his arse on getting on a scooter. The technology is getting good to where our current scooters, we have a auto balance. If it feels you going off auto balance, out of balance, it'll actually kick you one way or another. It's not perfected, but these are some of the things that we're including in our technology to make it a safer ride. It's coming. What are we, 2.5 years old, basically, as an institution here worldwide? You didn't see a scooter used commercially 2.5 years ago, but I can tell you, for the rest of our lives, you won't be able to walk into a city and not see them. They are coming. They're here to stay. We just got to figure out as operators what is the best way to run these cities, and it with the help and the assistance of companies like Luna, who do just you would be amazed. What Andrew showed you really was the first time ever in the world that technology has been proven out. That one little thing there, that was huge news. We made the BBC, we made the Irish Times. It was outstanding, and I've had the privilege of being able to go back and forth with Andrew. Even though we have a 6-hour difference, we've had many conversations over what people would think very minute detail, but it's given us insight as to how to continually improve our operations as a scooter company and as a technology company for the cities and for everything else. Our CEO, Michael King, he's a great leader. He's been with us. He has so many hats to juggle, but he does it with such poise. You know, I've been thrilled to be able to work with Mick, and his no nonsense, can do type attitude pertains to everything from how we pick up a scooter to how we transport a scooter to how we operate in the city to the technology that we use. You know, he challenges daily to think out of the box. The one good thing about how we operate is we're in constant communication. We have our operational meetings, you know, 3 or 4 times a week. We have our executive meeting once a week, and you know that it's just a plethora of information that's layered, but it's communicated downwards to everybody. Jeff Mangold does an outstanding job of managing our fleets, along with Jared Gomez, Travis Hunt, Nolan Polanski. I'm really impressed. It's a young, dynamic group of executives that are so willing and able to adapt to anything that comes up. I'm more proud of those guys than I am anybody in the company. They've come a very long way. You know, we're happy to be where we're at. Where there's a lot of room to grow. There's a lot of questions to answer. I wanted to interrupt when you guys were talking to say, you know, that we've made significant strides in some of the concerns that you have, and you know, we can address those individually. Omar, I'm happy to talk to you offline about them. And Andrew, you know, I probably text you way too much on a daily basis, so we'll kind of leave it at that. But that's kind of who Blue Duck is in a nutshell. We're a scooter operating company that forms partnerships with the municipalities and governments and works very closely to share our information with them. And you know, with COVID coming out, who really wants to get on these buses and these trains and scooters are fun. I mean, they're fun, they're safer. We're throwing in antimicrobial handlebars. We're refining all of our scooter models to have these self-cleaning microbial handlebars to where it's going to reduce the risk of infection. We have protocol that we sanitize the scooters before we take them out a couple of times during the day when we bring them in. So we're doing the best of our abilities to be able to create a cleaner, safer environment in that respect from spreading any kind of a, excuse me, COVID. So that's me rambling on. I don't have any slides. I'm not a tech guy. I like to work with tech people, but I don't claim to be one. I'm an operator through and through.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. I very much appreciate that. And yes, so in our next slide, it's going to be all about Miovision. So my time to shine in that sense. So some of you might be familiar with Miovision, and others are new to our webinars as well as Miovision as a company. Well, those I want to take some time to quickly give an overview of who we are as a company and what we stand for, and obviously what we are selling and how we are, trying to be within the micromobility space. So first of all, Miovision was founded in 2005, and ever since we evolved into the leading authority when it comes to traffic data collection. Well, at the very beginning, we as Miovision were a traffic solution company, but through our continued approach of innovation and dedication to solving real world problems, we became what we stand for today, and that is helping cities achieve their smart city visions. So we know in cities across the globe, shifts are happening. Smart cities are beginning to really take shape. And we as a company are a great believer in that with the right approach, and most of all, and of course, data, every city, big, small, medium size, can be a smart city. Well, there's also the rise of IoT and technological advances in all aspects of modern life. Well, because of this, citizens expect their daily interactions with city infrastructure to work in the same efficient and seamless manner as all other areas of modern life. So using infrastructure, moving around should be as easy as using your iPhone or just dialing a phone number. Well, citizens also, in particular the younger generation now, are starting to insist on less traffic, on-demand city services, and accessibility for all. This is where Miovision in particular helps shape this vision into reality by providing traffic data which matters to planning and traffic professionals. So we as Miovision have a world-class reputation for helping traffic and planning professionals solve traffic problems. Since 2008, our Scout and Data Link platform have counted, classifies, and provided data points on a variety of road users around the world. Well, now that we've seen and noticed shifts to more personal modes of transportation, and that could be walking, cycling, and as we are currently discussing, e-scootering. Well, this trend has cities looking into measuring these shifts. And for many, there's one or two actually big questions. That is one, are these shifts permanent? And how do they affect our current infrastructure in terms of roads? So the only way to tell, as we say, is to continually measure. So those cities should make data-driven decisions based on what changes they need to make to address these trends. One of these trends, as we said, is micromobility. And as with anything in micromobility or mobility itself, there is good and there is bad. Well, we've heard from Omar that they have a lot of promise, and the same as from Peter, but they also have delivered many challenges to users, cities, and the infrastructure they're being ridden on. So most formidable would be safety of not only scooter riders, but also other road users interacting with scooter riders. And here I like to tell a little story of a friend of mine. Let's call him Can Do It All. All right. So Can Do It All went out one of those beautiful nights to go meet up with friends in restaurants and have a couple of drinks and foods. Besides being the loudest on the table, well, Can Do It All also hated walking. Walking was the strange concept of actually moving by using the means of what Mother Nature has provided us with, legs. So the night comes to an end, and eventually it was time to leave. Unfortunately, Germany is not really a country where you easily find a taxi late at night, if you're not in the right city, like Berlin. So there is this amazing opportunity to try these cool new two-wheeled devices called e-scooters. So what you do, phones out, app downloaded, Apple Pay added, and we are ready to roll. Well, her friends made her aware of the fact that the first ride is always a bit tricky, as we all have noticed and experienced by ourselves. But who cares, as long as we don't have to use Mother Nature's given legs. So can do it all, jumped on it, hit the gas. Well, the rush came a little bit too fast, and what happened? Well, she sped right into this one of those beautiful manufactured cars out of Stuttgart. Well, luckily, Germans build very resistant cars and can do it all, has more luck than anybody else on this earth. So nobody got hurt, no scratches, no dents, no anything, which was great. Well, what we learn from this is, and we have mentioned this before, is that it's not always the other who's at fault. It is sometimes the actual user of a particular device. Well, this is the particular reason why it is important to know the location of where an e-scooter is actually riding. Well, many cities have directed riders, operators to only use scooters on sidewalks, as we heard, on bike lanes or roadways. Each city has a different rule based upon their infrastructure, but challenges obviously arise when you have e-scooters in direct competition with either pedestrians on a sidewalk, vehicles on a roadway, or bikes on a bike lane. Well, on the other hand, we also have the problem, I just call it e-scooter littering. Littering and parking disobedient leads obviously to cluttered and inaccessible sidewalks. Especially for those with mobility devices like wheelchairs or walkers, this can be a huge problem when using a city's infrastructure. Well, citizens do also become frustrated with the clutter or throwing them, these nice e-scooters, into ocean, lakes, even setting them on fire. And I've seen plenty of them ending up in backyards and rivers around Germany. So this reality, safety, littering, and road user interaction puts obviously transport professionals in a hard place. They want to embrace these new trends and modes on their infrastructure, but they also need to protect citizens from danger. So the question remains, where do we start? Well, accurate and verifiable data has proven to be very useful in the past. And with the help of data, you can learn about e-scooter usage and how it's impacting your city or municipality or region. There are some great examples of how cities are currently using data to manage their deployments, address some of the challenges heard about previously, and inform their communities. Well, with the help of Miovision, you can collect the data you actually require to quantify e-scooter rides on a micro level, meaning where they actually take place. Is it on the road, bike lane, or sidewalk? This combined with macro level data, OD data from e-scooter providers, for example, can be a powerful tool. So let's start at the street level to tackle micromobility challenges by deploying Miovision Scout to quantify e-scooter trips on the micro level and observe parking behavior as well as other interactions at any locations. And while generating all this data, you can also collect volume and turning movement data on vehicles of various classes as well as pedestrians. So with the help of one single solution, you collect the needed data, which is required by planners and engineers to make informed decisions on how to augment infrastructure and help you manage the micromobility trend to keep your citizens safe and your infrastructure still usable. All right, guys, thank you so much to all of you for participating. Now we still have some amazing time to open up the forum for Q&A to all our panelists. So I already marked a couple of questions, and let's dive right into it. Are you up for it, guys?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Let's go for it.
Awesome. So let me, okay. So the first question I have to Andrew, and it is, what maps are you using with GNSS?
Yeah, so we're just using in terms of visualization, we use the conventional mapping platforms, but obviously the challenge with that is if you take Google Maps, for instance, it's not accurate to centimeter level. So what we're actually doing is we're mapping the parking bays, and that's the concept that the operators go for. It's this virtual dock idea. So it's really quick to mark a parking area. You can do it in 30 seconds. And that's really the model, is that each area is going to be mapped within the map, if that makes sense. So we use Google Maps to visualize where it is, but as I said, there's like a map within the map.
Mm-hmm. Another question I have is, and maybe that goes to Peter and Andrew together, is can you tell us about the climate conditions in cities that Luna has currently operating in, but also I think Blue Duck, and what are the challenges related to this issue? I think that's an issue in terms of climate, heat, cold.
Well, our second generation, we were operating in Corpus Christi on a boardwalk, a cement boardwalk, and the temperatures would get upwards of 120, 125 degrees. So obviously we had to go back and rethink the casing and how we cover the batteries and how we, keep them from ruining themselves. And we've made the adjustments. I can't share proprietary what we did, but we also operate in rain, wind. We've made our kickstand sturdier so that a heavy wind doesn't blow them over. We've rethought the way we seal all of our components to keep the water out of them. And then obviously there's the sand, because we're in a lot of coastal towns. So that helps from there. We put some protectants around the wheels, and we give them a thorough oiling after every so many days in the beach areas. But definitely have to take into account, weather and the climate for many different reasons. We haven't operated in snow yet, so I don't envision snow tires coming on anytime soon. But again, I'm in the south of the United States. I may go over there, so we'll see how that comes up.
Yeah, from Luna's perspective, we've just operated in Dublin, so it's summertime today. We've got 20 degrees and sun is shining, but we don't really get snow or really freezing temperatures, but plenty of wind and rain and things like that. So that's the extent of what we've got so far. As I say, we're looking ahead to go into UK trials, same weather conditions.
Okay, that's great to hear. So how does Blue Duck integrate with other transportation modes that exist?
Every city we're in, we have the bike share companies, we have the buses. We've been fortunate enough to work with some municipalities that actually want us from point A to point B for that last mile transportation, like very near to the bus stops. So maybe this person has to walk 1.5 miles after their last bus stop. They can jump on one of our scooters and leave it in a designated area. Those kind of things are what we've done. And we've worked with, the other companies. We're all in the same business. We try not to invade their space, and they reciprocate. So it's been, quite efficient from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Great. And another question for you, Peter, is can you explain the AntiMicrobial handlebars?
They're battery powered, and I can't get into the exact technology. I wish Andre was on the call. Andrew, you've done a little bit of research. I'm sure you could probably answer that best for me. He knows exactly what we're doing, and he's well aware of how they operate. Andrew, can you help me out here a little bit?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to give the correct answer in terms of the science, but my understanding is that the technology is kind of coming from the healthcare background, and it's the idea that the stuff is kind of self-sanitizing, kills the germs without the need to wipe them down. That's my understanding of how the surfaces work.
And they have the little cell batteries that are good for up to 100 hours, and you can kind of set how often you want them cleaned, and how often you want them disinfected. But again, we've gone the extra effort. We've got the guys with the Ghostbuster backpacks on that are going out into the field, straightening up the scooters like we do every day. We have drop off, clean up, reservice, and they're kind of spraying the whole scooter down just to make that extra step to make sure that we keep them as sanitary as we possibly can. and it makes the cities very happy and comfortable with this when they see us doing that.
Another question on what distance can be traveled by an e-scooter before it needs recharge or swooping batteries? Can you give some insights on that?
You know, you could get on an average ride, if it's not undulating and it's up and down the hills, and you know it's going to vary by terrain, but you can get a good 18 to 20 miles to 23 miles per scooter in some cases. And you know, you got to keep things in perspective that the average ride is about 5 or 6 miles per person currently. So it'll last for 5 or 6 rides. And the technology, the other great thing about technology, like what Andrew has and what we use, it alerts us when a scooter gets to below whatever capacity level we set. Say we set it at 30 or 40, and we get a group of those, and we'll send another guy out, and all he's doing is replenishing batteries and at the same time straightening up the mess and sanitizing the scooters as well.
A question with COVID-19, do you think e-scooters could be used for deliveries or some equivalent to Ubers?
We have looked into a 3-wheel scooter with the carriage and back that definitely could probably accommodate that. I'm not saying we're there yet, but it's a distinct possibility that they can absolutely come into play for delivery.
Great. I have a question here for Miovision. Is Miovision's tech able to separate e-scooters from other sidewalk or bike lane users? Yes, there's a possibility. It's one of, obviously, e-scooters is a custom class, which has been recently introduced as a beta version since the beginning of the year. Since prior COVID-19, obviously, they have been very much deployed in almost any major city around the globe. And so there's the possibility with our technology to count them in the particular roadway as well.
Can I interject real quick? One thing that I omitted, our back-end application allows for different kind of zoning, and I kind of went into that vaguely in when I was speaking earlier. Rambling probably is a better word for it. We have the ability to have zones where they're not allowed to have 8 kilometers per hour in this zone, picks up to 12 kilometers per hour in this zone. You know, it's the innovations with the back-end processes allows for us to be able to say, okay, we don't want you in this bike lane, we don't want you on the sidewalk. But some cities prefer us on the sidewalk, and some cities don't want us on the sidewalk at all. So that's in the back-end application that we're able to do that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of people who want to know more about Blue Duck, and does Blue Duck have an open API to be integrated into apps like the Transit app, which allows for a user to book a trip from start to finish and pay it all at once instead of several different apps?
You can reserve on our app. You can reserve a scooter, and you can put a deposit, and you know, if you know how long the ride is going to be. We haven't got the estimation of like point A to point B destination, but you can absolutely reserve a scooter, and that scooter will be waiting for you, and put a deposit down, and whatever you have remaining, it will give you back, or whatever you need to pay more, it'll just take out of the card that you use to reserve the scooter for the ride or the trip.
And I have a very interesting question, probably directed at both Andrew and Peter. Are there data sharing agreements in relation to trip data, GPS coordinates, helmet wearing rates, etc., with the respective cities, municipalities where the e-scooters are available? And and that's the second part of the question, are there concerns with privacy if this data is shared?
Andrew, I can go first. We absolutely share all of that data with the city. Privacy concerns, it is only used to show the length of the ride, or how often they rode, how many rides per day. We're not selling their data. We're not, you know, using it for advertising purposes. It's strictly for public administration and operations, as well as ours. And it assists us when it comes time to say, okay, we want to increase our fleet. You guys have the information in front of you. We're getting too many rides per day per scooter, or we want to back down our fleet. You've asked us to put too many out, and we need to back it down to this to be able to obtain, you know, a certain level of ridership and profitability. Andrew?
Yeah, from the Luna perspective, obviously we've just done a very small pilot initially, but yeah, my view on the data sharing is it really adds to this, like as a whole industry, right? You want it's last mile logistics, so really the more data you can share, the stronger you make the service. So you know whether you're integrating with you know public transport or whether you're trying to plan the city, the data sharing is really important to it. Obviously it's got to be done correctly. We've got GDPR in Europe, and you know you've got to go with those rules, and that's important. But yeah, where you can, you share the data.
And I don't want to coin the phrase, and I think we've all actually used it, the last mile transportation. I think given the current circumstances and conditions of public health and you know the movement of COVID, I think this could easily become for a lot more people all mile transportation rather than last mile transportation. Rather than getting on a bus or a train or something to that effect. I just wanted to throw that in because I know we've all coined last mile transportation, even myself, but I need to start telling myself I want this to be all mile transportation.
Maybe that's a good segue. Maybe also for Omar is like, what's your perception? Do you think like from the people you talked to in the past, is there a lot of people who considering this as a first mile option or last mile option, and now this being made available in London as the first time? You know, I've been to London and driving with a car in there, really, yeah, it's not the best experience. So.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, like I live in East London, which is probably about 13 miles away from my workplace in the center of the city. I could just ride a scooter from beginning to end. So it's not even about first or last mile. You can make it the whole journey if need be, because everything is so compact over here. But for instance, you know, for areas in the US, like, you know, Peter was talking about, you know, it's going to be part of a much longer journey. I have seen people get off the train or drive in, you know, to where the congestion charge is, get out, and then ride an e-scooter from there. Recently, I have seen that. So it's, you know, it's more about convenience than anything else. You know, up until the point where it doesn't cost you that much anymore. I'll be honest with you. Whenever I plan a trip, if I have to use an e-scooter in the end, I'll probably do it at the lowest point of, you know, cost. You know, I'll probably do it as a last mile thing. I'll drive up cheap, you know, park where it's cheapest, my car, and then ride in from there. But again, you know, in somewhere like London, you can just ride them anywhere, and you'll probably have plenty of battery to get you back in there in the same trip, or just find another there. So yeah, come to London. Come ride them over here when they become legal. You'll find that, you know, there'll be people all over the place, including myself.
I'll bring a couple of them for us. We'll ride from your house into your office together.
Go for it. You know, let's ride together. I'll be honest with you. It's something that I've been a bit hasty myself. I've already bought a private e-scooter because I didn't realize the trials over here would only be for rental rather than you know, for private as well. But it's not just myself. A few people have done that. So there's an enthusiasm to turn this into the next vehicle, you know, into the next car for them, because everywhere is so close down south here. So, and then very my wavy, you know, 500 quid for a decent scooter with a decent battery. Why not just make it last your whole journey? I'm paying a flipping car payment that is half the amount of e-scooter per month. I don't need to be doing that, especially during this economic climate and with Brexit happening. That's definitely going to be a big thing as well with a lot of people, just how their income is affected by the economic downturn of the pandemic, of Brexit, if it is an economic downturn. So it's a very cost-effective option. So,
Well, I think we now went over the hour as well, and thank you very much, first of all, for all participating in this discussion, showcasing your solutions. Obviously, thanks again, guys, for making this happen. And to the audience, I want to say, if you have any questions, obviously on the screen, if I'm not mistaken, you should be able to see everybody's contact details and email addresses. So if you have any specific questions for solutions, may it be you want to integrate Luna's technology in your new upcoming e-scooter fleet, or you want to use an e-scooter fleet from Blue Duck within your city, you want to go on a session with Omar, or you actually want to count traffic, feel free to reach out to each individual one of us. And the emails are there. You will all receive a recording, so don't worry. If you missed any of the presentations, tuned in later, we send out the recording made available to you, so you can share it with your friends, family, at the rainy day somewhere in the world and watch it. So thanks again, and I wish you guys all the best. Hopefully we stay in touch for sure beyond.
For sure, yeah. Thank you for having us.
Beautiful webinar.
Thank you for having us.
Very much. Was awesome. So thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
I wish
Okay,
you all the
thank you.
best.
All right, take care. Everybody stay safe.